Welcome to the Phoenix Prosperity Podcast, where wealth meets legacy. Join your host, Tim Fergestad, as we explore the journeys of Phoenix's finest to success and beyond.
Hello, this is Tim Fergestad. Thank you for joining us. I'm very pleased to have John Casey with me here today. John is the owner of GFT Ready Mix here in Phoenix. Welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
All right. Well, why don't you give us a quick snapshot of your business right now?
We're a ready mix concrete supplier. We have 4 batch plants in the valley. We've got Queen Creek, our primary plant on 51st Avenue in Lower Buckeye, Surprise location, and a West Buckeye location. And so we supply all scopes of ready mix concrete. Excuse me. From industrial, commercial to residential and DIY do-it-yourselfers.
Okay. How long have you had all those locations?
So our 4th location came online early last year. So the 51st Avenue has been here for about 10 years. And then pretty much 1 a year since then. Okay.
Is that kind of the scope, is to keep growing where it's needed?
Yeah, I mean, it's the ready mix business is kind of the land of giants. I mean, we're really the last and only family owned ready mix of any size in Arizona. So it's a bit of a challenge to keep up with the multinational companies and maintain it. So yeah, but we continue to grow, and we've got plans for a 5th plant down in the Casa Grande area and possibly Prescott.
Okay, sure, that makes sense.
Year. So we're in a comfortable growth phase. We've been able to differentiate ourselves from the multinational companies and the big guys by being big enough to do all the same scope and work that they do, but having a little bit more of a local touch and higher level of customer service.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's huge. Okay. So, I was going to ask you that, in the competition in the space, what sets you apart? So that's great. So can you speak a little bit more about the logistics for our listeners who may not understand why you have different locations in the valley?
Well, I mean, your concrete is a perishable product. It's by design, it gets hard. So you want to be as close to the projects and to your delivery points as possible. And largely we're a trucking company that hauls our own product. So right. It also minimizes our truck time, because that's really where we maximize our value to our customer response time. So it's important to be able to deliver close within, we try to target within 30 miles of our projects. And then Arizona being Arizona, because it does get very hot, that accelerates the concrete. So right. So there's reason for multiple locations, and also to be close to our supply source, whether it's primarily aggregates. It's also cool to be close to those.
Let's talk a little bit about that, because I don't know if exactly the nature of the current modern products, but I know gypsum and some of this other stuff, they're sourced from China and all sorts of other places. Can you talk a little bit about what ingredients you need and how you source them?
Well, I mean, sand and rock is the primary one, which are primarily local. So they're mined locally. So really those sand and rocks are local. The cement, as you indicated, gypsum, that in Arizona, we have 2 sources that are local in the state, which is SRNG, or Salt River Material, and Cal Portland also. Actually 3. I take that back. We've got Drake, SRNG, and then Cal Portland. All have local mines, but they're not in kilns. But it's supplemented largely from cement out of California. In Arizona, generally, we only see imports from California and Mexico. California is really supplied from different places. China is one of those, and different countries. So we only really feel those effects when California needs that supply that generally comes to supplement to Arizona. It happened a few years ago where there was a pretty significant shortage.
Right.
And then subsequently, but currently the market has softened up somewhat in Arizona, but largely in California. So from supply,
demand is low.
Demand is lower, so we really aren't seeing those issues right now. As Arizona ramps up with some of these big mega projects, we could see some push, but capacity's come up. So I don't expect to see a real shortage right now. Impacts of, tariffs is always what everybody's talking about right now. Mexico and from other countries.
Right.
With the demand there is right now, I don't think there's going to be a major impact, and I think things will probably get sorted out before that happens.
Okay. What was the last? I don't remember. There's been concrete prices have come and gone over the years. There's been different booms and busts. So can you name one that happened in the last 20 years that was a big one besides
most recent when we had the shortage was a big boom in Arizona in particular. I mean, it was there really wasn't enough capacity for ready mix in Arizona. So, and then there was a shortage of cement too, which strained that again. So we saw some price increases, but then we've seen a lot of downward pressure on the market more recently. Late last year, Q2 of last year is where the downward pressure really started as interest rates went up and housing and developers were trying to hang on to the profits that they had experienced that were epically high. So we've seen quite a bit of downward pressure most recently. We think it's going to table off here, but yeah.
Sure. Some of the bigger shops have to keep going.
Yeah, they're big monsters. So yeah, they tend to trying to buy that volume and keep it going. So difficult for a group like us to manage and maintain consistent and acceptable margins, but we've been able to. So
okay, excellent. So on that note, sort of, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your career?
Oh God, in my career,
right?
That's kind of a winding road. Particularly, it's biggest challenges. I think one of the biggest challenges, I think for me personally, has really been to continue to reinvent myself. By nature, I'm a doer. And somewhere along the line, I had to learn to become a manager and leader. So I think that was probably one of the bigger challenges. The rest are day-to-day stuff, but those are long-lasting challenges that affecting change. And learning how to manage people better, and just mature as a owner and CEO CEO than as the guy who goes out and does everything. So I think that's a difficult transition. And then, from our company, because of our growth and what we do, we're really made up of doers, and to empower them and teach them to be better managers and delegators. I think, and that has really been one of the bigger challenges I've had in being able to grow those stepstones of revenue and number of people and things like that, and do that effectively and efficiently. It's probably been one of the bigger challenges in my personal career.
Yeah, managing people is very important. You've obviously done it. You've managed to successfully keep growing and moving forward. That means you're doing some things right. Can you talk about some of the things you do for your company and your employees that try to keep that moving forward?
Again, in that same challenge line, what we strive to be is a very bottom-up company, not a top-down company. So, empowering, people to grow and teach them and bring them up. The level of growth has really challenged that, because we grow faster than we can actually mature some of those levels. So by having a bottom-up philosophy, but then yet needing to bring talent in from the outside, and then maintain those cultures, is really difficult. And it's one of the things that we strive is, I always say that, we defend culture every day, because it's easy to let that get away from you. And particularly as you grow, where my touch is that I can't touch everybody like I used to, from, drivers to laborers, and still be available for them, but still make sure that culture, which is been a big part of our success, honestly, is attracting talent. So that we, from the top to the bottom, making sure that everybody is engaged and realize that they are just as key a part as, upper management. Because if I guess I always say that every day starts with a shovel. So, somebody's got to do that work, and without it, everything falls apart. So trying to maintain engagement and give them a sight that there's opportunity beyond where they are today, and then really engaging a lot of next generation. We've been very fortunate, whether it's our current employees bringing their children, their young men and young women into the business, and then internships. We do a lot of different internships. So really, that engagement is really. It's very rewarding, but it's been a big part of our success. It's always with our people, and as we grow, the day-to-day management of the everything for me gets me further away from it to get my management team engaged. And a lot of credit to our HR department and our entire management team that really does continue to exude that. So. I don't know if I answered your question completely.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of aspects to it, and it sounds like you've got a lot of great people on there, and that comes from creating an environment where A players want to be. Yeah,
absolutely. And the challenge, for our management team, I'm like, listen, if we're doing our job, we're taking C players and making them A and B players. I'm like, that is our job, is to not turn, a key metric for us is retention. And we continue that all the way through, like I say, through the ranks, from the laborers that are just entering into the business, or how do we engage them, and is our are we able to keep them and find them new opportunities and let them grow? So it's a very key metric to us.
Right. Okay. And so, what are the bigger goals for the company? For the next, I don't know, for 2025, but also for the next 5-10 years, 15, 20 years.
Sure. So as you talked about pricing, downward pressure on pricing puts, downward pressure on us to our suppliers. So really key things that we're moving into is starting to do our own mining operations, where now we can control that aspect of our supply, of our supply chain. So we'll be bringing First Side online here, Hopefully we'll be done permitting and everything. We should come online actually producing late Q2, Q3, and then we'll have another mine that we'll bring online probably right about the same time in Q3, if everything continues to go well on that one. So that's one area of growth for us. Of course, in our customer facing. We've got a couple markets that we want to go after and continue to exploit, where they're not oversaturated with competition, and can use our type of approach to the market. Well, with the customer service, and it's not just commodity. Phoenix is tough because it is, it's a big market, and so it's very hard to be something more than a commodity. We try to do that, but at the same time, you got to get to the dance before you can prove you're a good dancer. So, we're still subject to that. So we try to look for smaller markets and move into those markets where we can make an impact.
Okay. That's great. I was going to ask what some of the bigger hurdles are to your current goals, but it sounds like that's a good one. And talking about first principles, right? And sourcing the stuff you need directly, and threats. Right. I mean, what are the threats to your business, supply chain and stuff? And that's actually where a lot of companies manage to grow, is by looking at for threats.
Yeah. So that's certainly one of them. The cement side, some of those things are, where it's I won't say never, but the multinational companies, they're either aggregate companies or cement companies, and then they have ready mixes that they bolt on to use their supply. So
Right.
so it's a tough space. Threats, the economic threats are always huge. And that's the primary and the biggest one for all of us, right? It drives everything else. We feel like we're in a pretty good place. I'd say we're cautiously optimistic. We're not really bullish, but the Arizona and Southwest markets, I believe, are going to have some good insulation, regardless of the national economy.
Okay.
The money's still trying to find homes, in Arizona and the Southwest is a pretty safe bet compared to a lot of the national markets. So it's performing pretty well. The threats are, bigger, better competition. Again, we're in the land of the giants, and there's been a lot of allocations, big ones from multinational companies into the Arizona market. So that's always a challenge. Always something we look for. We're as we were discussing earlier, we're multi-generational. I grew up in this business, not in Arizona, but I've got kids, and we've got multi-generations that are here. So we certainly hope to survive that allocation from other companies, and so potentially we'll look at the possibility of allocating some other companies and see how that goes. But the threats are really largely the economics. Concrete is the biggest building product on the face of the planet, and so there is always a need. But Arizona, particularly this greater Phoenix market, is very well represented, and there's a lot of competition in it, and good competition too.
Right. Now, how often do you get offers for the business?
I have starved it off. I haven't gotten one. I guess it's the energy you give. I don't put the energy out there that I want an offer. At some point, the others have been kind of picked through. So at some point, I suspect we will. But part of my philosophy in business is you always run a business like you're getting it ready to sell, because that's when your profits are good and your books are straight and you're buttoned up.
For sure.
So that's how we approach it, but don't really want to. But there's also just good sense that says at some point that may have to happen.
Sure. You keep mentioning Phoenix or Arizona and the Southwest. So I'm wondering if you service any markets outside of Arizona yourself?
So we don't.
Okay.
There's a lot to accomplish in the Arizona market at this point. So we don't really have designs anywhere else, but you never know. You never know what may make sense to us. But there, like I said, we've got a lot to accomplish here. We certainly haven't tabled out. We're still experiencing growth this year. We're in Q1. I think we're 18% up, which is better than our respective competition. So we're doing some stuff right. But we've got a ways to go. So we'll see. But the Southwest, I meant that more of as a broader economic outlook between really Texas. New Mexico is kind of quirky, but really Texas and Southern California fits into that. But that's a whole different world that is not a target for us at all.
Right.
And you mentioned Utah, southwestern Colorado. These areas, I think they're going to starve off. Obviously, particularly Texas. The Texas market is strong, and Phoenix is strong. So part of that, I think, is coming from the challenges of the California market.
Right. For sure.
So I think the biggest threats to our economic market would be California getting their stuff figured out and trying to starve off and attract businesses again. But I don't see that happening for a while.
No.
If they started it now, I think we got a good 2 decades before they can start to curb the outflow of what the damage that's been done. So, but they will. Sooner or later, everybody gets tired of what it looks like and starts to fix problems. So we'll see.
Right. How about Nevada? Is there?
Nevada, oh, yeah. It's in my industry, it's a I'll call it well represented but overrepresented market.
Okay.
It's kind of like Phoenix, and then it's very consolidated into that Las Vegas piece. Not a market we're interested at this point.
Right.
We've certainly looked at it, but it is, again, like I say, very well represented by good operators.
Okay.
Not,
sure. Some big projects there.
Yeah, and sometimes markets can be attractive if it's represented by some operators who maybe aren't up to par, aren't real solid operators in our industry. Those can be attractive. It's really not the case in Vegas.
Right.
Well-heeled, well-run companies, as is Phoenix. There's not the bad operators have been either gone or they've been purchased up or something like that. So yeah, that Vegas market, like I say, very well represented, good operators, and a tough market.
Right. I guess I think there's the show there. Is it World of Concrete? Do you go to that?
The World of Concrete, and then this year is the Con Ag show, which is the big mega show up there. So yeah, we usually attend that.
Okay.
So yeah, it's interesting and really great national perspective. We get to spend a lot of times with not only our customers who usually go there, gives us a great chance to visit with them. So a lot of entertaining for us when we're up there, and a chance for us to meet with people in other regions and understand what they're doing. And so it's
right. Does that industry change a lot? Do you get some good insights on how to prepare for the future?
The ready mix industry is really slow to change. Technology, operating systems, and things like that have improved, but I mean the nuts and bolts of what we do, it's the same dirty business that I grew up in. So from the equipment side, sure, there's some you can always learn from somebody, so it's always good to talk to other people and see how they solve challenges within their space. So from that perspective, yes. But yeah, it's the same stuff, It's kind of like I said, every day starts with a shovel. The industry itself,
I like that.
There are some new stuff, from environmental approaches to cement and how they produce that, and trying to lower their overall impact. So there's some stuff that's kind of weighted in and out, and always kind of watching to see what those trends look like. There's some interesting trends in 3D printed concrete buildings that I've been keenly interested in. Trying to see if that's something that's going to actually take place and become, the economics are going to start to justify themselves.
Right. Other my friends. I was just going to add, one of my friends, he builds Starbucks in different states.
They just did the first one.
And they just did the first, one of those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always keen to understand. So we also operate concrete pumps too. So we actually have a part of our operation that is a bolt-on that pumps our concrete and pumps for other companies as well. So, those are, the 3D printing is something that, I'm kind of watching to see how does that fall within the industry? Does that the equipment that does it is very expensive.
Right. But so is labor.
And so is labor. Absolutely. Absolutely. So, but the key interest for me is how does that, if that technology starts to prove itself and become economic, how does that integrate into the industry, right? Us as a supplier, pumping concrete, is that something that is a bolt-on to our business where, we would provide, the services to do that? They do the designs, we bolt them in, we provide the services. So right now, I'm curious as to see how that integrates into the industry. because we're a small family-owned company. We have latitude to look at opportunities like that integrate.
Okay.
Whereas multinational companies, it's something they just couldn't bite off. There wouldn't be a good integration point to them. So
they'll start that whole new division only when they have to.
Only if really forced to, if that's really the way it goes. And smaller local impact producers start to say, hey, you know what, we're going to provide this as a service. So any new technology that comes into the building space, and they started in the right spot, right? Because I've been involved in several things, whether it's SIPs or ICFs and things like that. And I always tell everybody, I'm like, listen, start in Florida, because if you can get through Dade County, you can build anywhere. But that's where you start. At some point, you're going to deal with Dade County. So they certainly have been approaching it right. Super interested in it. I'm obviously keenly interested in that technology. But mostly, it's how does it develop? Like I said, ready mix. Man, the building trades, they are super slow. I mean, it's sticks and stones. That's how they build. That's what they build. That's what they know. Right. So seeing a major change in that, there's going to have to be a lot of money behind it and a big effort to integrate it with, some of your bigger tract home builders and get somebody to adopt it and take a risk on it. So, right. But certainly that is something that I'm keenly interested in and watching. Anything like that moves forward, and we'll see.
Right. Yeah, it's a hard industry to change. I had somebody on the show, Salman, with Mosaic Construction. He does build to rent here, and it's more about his sort of innovations are mitigating the holding costs and the delays, but with communication between the trades, right? Trying to do that.
Yeah. No, it's one of the. Ironic, I talked about some of our internships. It's one of the things I preach to, no matter what business you're going into, get your PMP, learn project management, because everything's a project. So it's absolutely right. That whole time and that transition between things, it's all about project management and organization, and then just managing timelines. But I don't think it matters whether you're an electrical engineer or what you do, even finance. I'm like, it's still a project. If you understand how to handle projects, it's definitely key. So certainly, I could not agree with him more that's a challenge.
Right. That's good advice there too. Learn project management. Everything's a project.
Everything's a project. I'd say as I said, I work with a lot of interns moving into it. And one of the exercises I have them do, because kids, particularly coming out of high school, don't have a lot of experience in anything, right? And so I counsel them to, I'm like, take what was your task, as a life experience. It was a task, whether it was cleaning the kitchen, making sandwiches, or doing the lawn, and create a project out of that. Allocate your
with SOPs and other stuff.
You got it. How do you move through that? How do you make the sandwich is what I always say. Where did the bread come from? How did you get the bread? Where did you get the resources? So I counsel a lot of kids I work with to say, listen, learn how to build a sandwich. Learn how everything's a project. Whether you treated it like one or not, understand the steps that went into actually completing that task. So yeah, couldn't agree with him more. It's a skill set that I don't know how good it ever was. I've worked with project managers forever and been one, but certainly a skill that doesn't go away either.
Right. And like you said, it affects virtually every industry. I use different project management software for interacting with almost every aspect of my business and all my affiliates and so forth.
Yep. Yeah. It's just how far down the rabbit hole of those softwares do you actually go, and how finite do you manage those? But everything's a project for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. So as we sort of wrap up the things I like to ask you about a reflection question.
Certainly.
What do you wish you knew sooner about building wealth and success in your career?
Oh, sweet God. We may
Project
need
management software.
Another couple hours on that. I think it goes back to almost the first thing you said was my biggest challenge, which was recognizing quicker my own shortcomings and failure, and I won't say failures because the shortcomings led to failures, but it would have really been working on myself and reinventing myself every step of the way. I think the failures come with the territory. I mean, if you put it out there, you take risk. I mean, it's going to bite you a few times. Of course, if I had the value of a crystal ball, looking back and could have seen, different markets coming and different things happening, that certainly would have been helpful, but not realistic even today. So I think it would have really been doing more self-evaluation and identifying my shortcomings and addressing those earlier. And then I think one of those earlier on probably would have been managing my own energies better, more of a work-life balance, and understanding, that, it seemed simple at the time because I wasn't married, I didn't have kids. So, what was the impacts of that?
Right.
I could work all the time and didn't seem to do anything. But I think that would have added in my ability to balance things a little bit better, have more time to reflect things, because it's certainly, as I've had a family, and there's certainly a demand on my time, and understanding that I wanted, a desire to give that time and balance things better, gave me a better opportunity to step back from myself and not be so nose deep in it that I didn't recognize that I was creating many of the challenges that I was battling.
Right.
So I don't know.
Right, for
Again,
sure.
I don't know if I answered the question.
Oh, yeah, you did. That was a great answer, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I wish I would have started sooner," right? And they're talking about investing and other stuff, but investing in yourself is what you're talking about. It's like
right.
taking time to grow and reevaluate and pivot and learn from things. Otherwise,
I say it around here all the time. You always have external challenges, right? Problems that are external. And I say it all the time. It's like, okay, let's fix the us problems first. Let's figure out the things that we do to contribute, the controllable things, right? The things that we can fix that are contributing to this. It's too easy, and it's a very common cop-out to go, well, it's because of what they did. It's because of this, or it's because of that. But there's always steps along the way that, whether we should have recognized it earlier, right? Realized we had a problem with, even if it was with an outside source, supplier, customers, employees, so what can we do to recognize it earlier, address it earlier, support, again, all of those, whether it's an employee, a supplier, or a customer. Could we have supported them in a different way earlier to make a different outcome? So, it really is in that same line of thinking, let's fix the us problems. We'll worry about the them problems once the us problems are fixed, because we can fix the us problems.
Right.
The them problems, all we can do is mitigate it. So,
focus on the things you can control. And it reminds me of Jocko Willink, if you're familiar with Jocko.
I may be, but not specific.
He has one of his books, Extreme Ownership, right? It's
right.
He's Navy SEAL, motivational. He talks to all the top Fortune companies and stuff on leadership, and it's fantastic. A lot of that good stuff. Yeah.
No, it's I think those are really the keys. Is just to answer kind of the all of the above, from biggest challenges to those things. There was no starting earlier for me. I worked at a very young age, and I actually was reflecting the other day as I was helping some of these kids looking for internships and how to move it. I was talking to my COO, and I'm like, you know what I realized? I have only applied for one job in my entire life. I have filled out one job application in my entire life and never done a resume. So again, interesting, I always say that, do that every once in a while. And, as I said that, I'm like, it's just a great exercise. What are my core attributes? What are my strengths? I've done
What are your values?
Right. Exactly. So, it's interesting to reevaluate where we are all the time. And then within the business, that is always, work it every day, really, really work it every day, pay attention, because those needs, they always exist, and there's a lot of human impact, particularly in a labor intensive environment like we have now. So, right. Are we serving everybody? Are we serving our employees? Are we serving our customers? How can we do that better? Where are we falling short? That has to be a daily process. You can't wait until you recognize that there's a problem, whether it's with your employee pool or your customers, because it's way too late at that point. It's like, just try to stay ahead of that.
Yep, for sure. Good stuff. Thanks, John. Good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, sure.
If people would like to connect with you, learn more, what should they do?
Geez, I'm pretty easy to reach. Just email address. It's jcasey@gftmix.com. And I don't know. I don't really have any like social media or anything.
Right. Okay. It's GFT Ready Mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm an easy reach too. So I'm in the community, and we love Arizona and love the community that we serve. So that's a really, really great benefit, whether it's, like I say, the internships or working with some of the trade schools or the different charities in town. So it's the thing that our success has brought us the ability to do, is really be a part of a lot of really great stuff. So we enjoy it.
Awesome. Yeah, it's got to be fun to drive around the valley and look at all the things you participated in.
It is. It's the thing I love about about this business is, there's it's real. It's not an abstract, and
right.
And the same thing with young kids and some of the charities and things like that. You actually get to touch and feel and see the impacts that are made,
right.
Which is I know you do a lot of investing and stuff like that, and it never appealed to me. I like to invest in my people, my company, right. And the things that I get to touch and feel.
Sure.
But investing is just that abstract, and then that's just money, and of course it buys a lot of.
It is for my investors anyway, for sure. Right. For us, we provide attainable housing. We fix up, make safe, clean housing. We're building a series of townhome build-to-rent communities here in the valley.
Wonderful.
And they're $1,000 a month cheaper than trying to afford the house of the same size now. Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the wording for us. I guess when I was speaking of it, it was more of
just money in an account and moving and investing. Yeah.
And of course, I get approached all the time. Oh, you should be in this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm good. I got stuff that I would do. And so, yeah, to your point, when you actually can invest in the community and you can create, with their job opportunities,
an impact,
housing opportunities. I mean, that's the frosting, right? We build the cake every day, but every once in a while we get to frost it.
That's right. I like that one. Yeah, a lot of good ones, good lines. Thank you, John.
All right. Well, thanks so much for your time.
All right. Yes. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we appreciate you, John, sharing your insights into success and impact here in Phoenix.
Sounds great. Thanks again.
Inspired by our guests? Visit PhoenixProsperityPodcast.com/guest and join us on the show and share your success story with Tim. The spotlight awaits.